Hi everybody, it's Amanda here. Happy to see you guys again. This lesson is going to be to do our butterfly wing painting, and I thought that was going to be really fun. All the new colors coming out for spring, happy, bright stuff. And we're all stuck in our homes like a cocoon. Just like the butterfly has to be to come out and be better. So that's our goal for this. Let's make a wicked painting, learn something new. The colors I've chosen to work with, because the butterfly is orange, is yellow. So we've got this yellow paint. This is an acrylic paint that I bought from a buck or two in Red Deer there. They're still supplying art supplies, and they offer curbside pickup. So that is really great, because then we're not cut off from that as well. And then we are using a vermilion red, which doesn't matter. You can use whatever red, but just in case you want to know what I'm using, that's what's there. And we're all going to need black, and we are all going to need white. So I'm suggesting, if you guys are doing different colors with, let's say somebody wants to do a blue wing, we're going to, instead of using another color to mix in, to get our different tones in the blue, we're just going to use whites to lighten it up. So if you're going with different colors, just use a white to change the tones. Later on down in this part of the lesson, you'll see what I'm talking about. So we're going to start with our light color. This is the main color of our wing. So I have chosen yellow for that, because then when we go in later, I'm going to use my reds to kind of turn it orange again with some shading. So this is a darker yellow. Not that bold, bright yellow that you often see, but that's okay if you use that too. It'll just give it a more, a brighter look. So you're just coating the whole canvas in it, really. And nice even brush strokes up and down. That kind of creates more clean lines for the eye. Nice even strokes. Up and down. And then we will let this dry before we pencil on. We're just going to sketch the shape of our wing. So if you don't have a pencil handy, now would be the time to go get one when this is drying. And then we will get ready for the next step. So take a break, let your canvas dry, and think about how you want to put that wing on there. Because we can all differentiate it a little bit. But that is the next step, to go get a pencil, and I will be back. Hi guys, I'm back, and I have a finished product sitting here to give you ideas on the shapes and how we're going to draw them in. So if you take a look at them, they aren't perfect. It's kind of just triangular shapes we have going. As you move upwards, they're moving into a point. So this is just a general idea, because all the butterfly wings look different, and I don't think that we have to all have it the same. So I have penciled. What I did to do that was pencil on top of my yellow background after it dried. And so if you guys can see the shapes there, I don't know how well, but you can see the shapes. Get that sketched on, and it's just a rough sketch. It just gives you an idea where to lay your paint down. It's just a bit of a guide. So once that is done, then if you are using the same colors as me, you're going to squeeze out your yellow that you primed your canvas with. And we're going to get a little bit of red. And then that's where we're going to start doing some mixing. And we're going to slowly fill in all of the spaces that we painted in and give them a little bit of color and definition. And with that, I'd like you guys to put down a little bit of white as well on your palette. And that's not something you're going to need a lot of, because we'll just dip into that at the end for highlighting. As you can see, there's some just in there, and that's what we're going to use to do our highlights. And with this, please do not be stingy with your paint, because the thicker you put it on there, the longer you're going to have to let stuff, like your color, blend. And in one of the videos before, I did mention it is good if we start at the top of our canvas and work the way down, because when you start at the top, then you're not rubbing your hand in there and smudging your whole painting up. So right now I'm dipping into my red, and I'm just overlaying in the first shape that I drew. I'm overlaying the color in that, making sure there's enough on there that when I go into my yellow now, it's going to mix and it's going to give us a shade of orange because yellow and red together make orange. And I'm going to play with these colors until I'm happy with it. So I'm going to dip into just a tad bit of white. And you'll see how that really lightens and brightens the look of it. And now I'm going to try to take out the streaks in it. Keep it lighter on the one side because that's what gives it that three-dimensional sort of look. And so I think I'm quite happy with that at this point. Then I can move on to the next one, which I think I want a little bit lighter yet. So this one is going to be a little bit more yellow for me because we're going to go back in all these spots and we're going to turn it dark. So this is just playing with your colors to set up your lights and darks. This is the part where you start to make this painting your own. This is where everybody's paintings are going to take a life of their own and they're going to look a little bit different. And that's the fun part to see. When you do these paintings in groups with people, it's really fun to see and to watch how everybody starts out the same, yet turns out so different. And I think that's what we need to keep in mind about people in general. We all start out little baby and turn out completely different from each other. And there is nothing wrong with that. It's actually essential. So because it's so wet, I'm noticing I'm losing a lot of my yellow into that red and I'm not getting that yellow color that I'd like. So I'm going to let that dry and then I'm going to have to go over it with some yellow just to add some highlights in there is what I think I'll do. So I'm going to continue doing this and filling in all my shapes from the top, moving down and then over. These ones are going to be my whiter spots. As in you'll see over here, there's lighter spots right here that I've drawn in. So I'm not going to put them in as orange. And I can always clean my lines up when we go back in with that black and fix the shape. Like if I don't like the way that the shape looks, that's okay because I can fix that up with my black. The butterfly really made me think about spring and how we're all kind of stuck in a cocoon, stuck in our houses. I just hope we all come out of it on the better side of things like the butterfly does after it comes out of its cocoon. Staying positive during everything. Finding something to laugh about every day really helps. Making things, making sure you get up, you get dressed, you stay motivated. Tease your kids a little bit with bad mom jokes and bad dad jokes. I think my kids are going insane from that. So there, I'm just trying to see if I can add my yellow back in. And it is working. So I'm still going to want to add a little bit of white down there just for myself. I think it'll look better. It's where you just play around and see what you like. So you don't like it, you go in there and you fix it up once it's dry. That's the nice part about this kind of stuff is that you do this according to your own rules. There's just a couple of general guidelines to follow and the rest is up to you. And again, the more red you put in, the more bold of a orange you'll get. And the more yellow you put in, the less harsh of a color it'll be. It'll just be a little bit softer. So that there is just with a little bit of white added in. And I'm just lightly pushing on the canvas and dragging my strokes upwards to fade it in so there doesn't look like there's any harsh brush lines. And I want to go over that with yellow right in here. See if I can softly blend it into a nice looking orange. Because I got that nice white that's highlighting it right here, I think I'm going to do the same thing yet on this side. I think that kind of will make everything pop when we put the black on there, because it takes light to show dark and dark to show light. So we're going to get a nice contrast when we put that black in there. And if you move your brush strokes in certain ways, it'll take on shape. So right here I'm making it more curved, kind of rolling the brush. It lays the paint down a little differently and you get a more round appearance, which is what I'm going for. And just so it doesn't look flat on the canvas. That I want much darker towards the bottom. So I'm laying my red on pretty thick right here. And so we would be doing the exact same thing if we're using other colors, like let's say you're using blues and purples, you'd be doing the exact same thing, just with using your whites to change the tone. So you'd use whites if this was purple. And then that's how you would work with your different tones, mixing different shades of it. Put a little bit more yellow in this one. And down in here too. Because it's almost looking a little too red for me. It's not picking it up on the screen as much as I can see it here, but it is quite red. And oftentimes with most acrylic paints, our yellow is pretty wimpy. So you need a lot more yellow as compared to how much red you would use. You don't need a lot of red. The pigment is pretty strong. And our yellow just gets overpowered. So I'm dipping into the white again just to define the shape a little bit. But I'm blending them in so we're getting soft lines. So I'm laying it down around the outside, just in broken lines. And then I'm taking it and I'm pulling the white inwards towards the paint, just to give it a soft blend. And just so you don't see those hard, crisp lines, because that's not the look we're going for on this painting. Kind of want my edges a little bit lighter, so then they'll really push forward when we put that black on. That's a secret, a little secret there, to have the spots and everything come forward. Just having them light around the edges on this one. And so now that I'm done that part, I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to go into the spots that I have blocked in right here. So these little spots right down here. And we're going to mix them with white. And when we put the white on, I kind of want it to be a little bit like, don't try to put it on super thick right away, because we want a little bit of this yellow background to show through. So then when we come back in later, after we have our black painted in, we then can go over certain parts of it and make it whiter, and it'll really pop and give you that, that feeling that there was a bunch more layers to this painting than just one quick slap it together, all done. So you'll notice I'm leaving spots in there and stuff, and I might even dip into a little bit of that yellow just to make it lighter, and then this is going to give it more dimension as we move on. We don't want them pure white at this stage, so dip into your yellow ever so slightly, just a tiny little bit of it you want in there. If you're not using yellow, use whatever color you chose to do your butterflies color. If you're doing blue, put a tiny bit of blue in this part. If you're doing green, a little bit of green. I accidentally picked up orange, but that's okay, we'll make it work. I'll go over that. And then I guess I'll just carry it into the rest of these ones. Bring a little bit in there. Don't freak out about mistakes. They happen all the time. Most of the time, the only person who knows about them is yourself. So I've got that set in, and the next step we're going to do is whip out all of our black paint. So you're going to need a ton of the black paint, and then I'm going to come back once this is all dry, and then I'll show you how to go through, and we will get this almost done here. Talk to you later. All right, so at this point our painting is dry. These things are all dry, so we're not going to pick up any color going through with our black. So that's all we need on our palette right now at this point. And again, we're going to start at the top, and we're going to work our way down just so we're not messing our painting up and getting our arm stuck in it. So this is where I like to use my angled brush, because I can keep the lines of it quite smooth. And I can use the edges of the brush to have some sort of precision for straight lines. So I'm just dragging it down really slowly and keeping my brush in contact with the canvas. And I'm going over all of these yellow spots. And just outlining the shapes that we've put in. And this is the part where we get to see all of the shading that we did earlier bring our painting to life. So I'm trying to work in motions where the brush strokes are just going downwards. In here, you're going to have to smooth out, like on these skinnier lines with the angles and stuff, you're going to have to smooth out the paint, the brush strokes and everything. And don't try to go skimpy on the paint, because you want a lot of good dark coverage in this part. So use a lot of paint, pull it around. And it's just about keeping your lines nice and straight and even in there. And that's going to be a brush that has nice bristles. The brush that you work with makes a lot of difference, and everybody likes different kinds, so that's something that you'll want to think about. What works for me might not work for you. What works for the person beside you might not work for you. So there isn't really a right or a wrong answer for which brush to use. It's just what you like and what you feel like you have the most control with at the time. And this, I'm just kind of going around. I might go over my shape a little bit to change it. The white dots and stuff that we did lay down. Going around them first, because it makes it a little easier to then go fill in the rest of the black spots. I'm just smoothing out the ripply little parts of the paint that's left on my canvas from the brush. And keep in mind, you're going to have to go over this with a second coat depending on how thick your black is and how color fast it is, because my black is going to need a couple coats because I can still see a little bit of that yellow background shining through. And so now that I'm coming up closer to these, this is the one spot where I do want a great big thick lip of paint right here. And I'm going to let that dry before I go into this part here and just fill in the background in this corner. The reason we're leaving that little lip of paint where there's more bubbly, leaving some of the acrylic paint on, is because that's going to give us definition of where the wing begins. And then we're going to go in there and just do a little bit of shading with it, as I did right here. But that thicker lip of paint, which you can't see on the camera, but it is there, left me a visual guideline in order to take my white at the very end and a little bit of yellow and define where the edges of our wings are. So that's what leaving the thick piece of paint on there is for at this point. If that bothers you, don't do it, and you can always eyeball it and then go back in and work on the shape of your wing without that thick lip of paint. I think it gives it a little bit more visual interest. I always like paintings that have a bit of texture in. It's just a personal preference. Nothing is wrong when it comes to art, because this is for yourself. And it's coming from yourself. So do what makes you feel right about the painting. And then just work around however you feel you need to work around to get these spots. If you go over some of the edges and shrink them up, that's okay, because we can always go back over them with our white once this black is dry. And that's where we start doing, once the background is dry, that's where we're going to start going in and then detailing it up a little bit. So you don't have to be too precise when you're going in here. The idea is just that we know where the white spots are in there. And then when I go back over top with the white, the solid white, because we did mix it in earlier with a little bit of yellow or oranges or whatever color your butterfly wing is going to be, that white's really going to stand out for us now. So we just set ourselves up for making the painting look a little bit more realistic. They always go step by step. Like I think that paintings are great for teaching people patience. Learning that all good things come with time. Time and mistakes. And I can still see some pencil lines in here, so in order to cover that up, I'm just going to go back in here and clean my line up. Changes the shape a little bit, but that's okay. The shape up in here I don't love, so I'm going to scoop that. Change that harsh edge a little bit. Feel better about it. So I'm just going in, filling in the spots that I can see some of my orange and yellow still shining through. And now at this point, I'm gonna rinse my brush off, get all of the black out of it, completely out of it. Gonna add a little bit more yellow to my palette, and I'm gonna add my white. My yellow, as I mentioned, was because I put the paint on so thick in here, I was losing some of the color. So if that did happen with you guys, or not, maybe you guys were a step ahead of me and you guys listened and learned and didn't do the same thing. Oh, see, I picked up some black, so that's not cool. I'm not happy about that. We're gonna have to go back in with that and cover that completely up. I don't want any black in there. See, that's warming it up a little bit. It's making it a little bit brighter for me, so I'm a lot happier with that. And now that I've pulled that yellow into this one, it's just sitting there with yellow. So what I'm going to do, notice it's a lighter tone. So if you're doing this along with me, or if you're happy with the way yours looks, don't touch it. Let's add the yellow into a few of them, just so that it pulls the eye and it's more cohesive. That's what happens when you don't wash your brush. You'll see there's that dart. I washed my brush, but not good enough. So wash it, dry it out really good, and then I'm gonna have to let that dry and fix it up. I don't like that. So I'm just going, it was somewhat dry. I just went in with a little bit of white over top of it because then it canceled that black right out. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that again right here. So we had already set up in the last step where our wings were going to be lighter. Those little sections on the wings. And it just gives it a little bit more dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that to the rest of these ones up here. But like I said, if you were happy with the way that your colors were blending together from the first go around, don't mess with it because you will regret it. It's always hard to get it back to the space if you were happy with it. So there we go. I feel like we have enough definition there that we can start working on these spots. And so the spots I'm dipping in with my white. There's still a little bit of yellow left on my brush, which doesn't bother me too much, but I'm thinking I want more of a bold white because that's where our eye is going to go. It's going to lighten up your painting. It's going to make it feel happier when you add the white to it. There's something about this white. When you add it to such a dark background, it lightens things up. It makes you feel better about looking at a dark painting. It makes it happy. And I'm letting some of the color show through that we laid down underneath. So some of that lighter, it just gives it a little bit. I'm just laying it down on some parts of the spots. Really no rhyme or reason. Because when you take a step back from this painting, which is a good idea to do when you're painting, stop, take a break, take a step back, look at what you're making. Because when you get a different view from it, it looks completely different than when you're close up. Then you come sit back down and you can work from another perspective. Now the dots start getting smaller as we get to the upper portion of the wing. So at this point, I'm going to take and dip I've got all my bristles stuck together on this brush. We're going to make a very fine line in broken lines just to define the shape of the wing. So this is how the brush looks. I have my paint both sides, bristles all together, And we're going to take the very tip of it and you're going to press lightly on the canvas. The more pressure you put on, the thicker of a line you're going to get. So this you want to do very lightly because it is white and it's going on to black. We're going to see it really fast. But relax when you're doing it, because if you don't, you're going to maybe put it on too thick. The secret is you put it on too thick, we can fix it. You just let it dry. That's the trick. Let it dry and then go over it with black again until you're happy with how it's going to look. So I'm starting from the bottom and just going to pull up and stop. I'm going to pick up clean paint again. I'm just going in on the inside of the ridges that I created when I asked us to put the paint on. So that gives us some definition into the wings. And then feel free to work away and add to your shading, add glitter, add things that make you happy. Make this painting your own. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope everybody sends pictures and posts pictures online and shows us their works of art. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day.